Alright, this is Lokati here, and we are doing a build video on our Spellblade. We have just started in the first cycle here. Um, we're going to do our first empowered monolith on the build, just finished out the timelines to get to empowered monoliths. We need to farm Blood, Frost, and Death for shackles, so we'll go ahead and start here. Rock and roll. We'll go get some XP points. Why not? So this is a Mana Strike, Shatter Strike build. And so most of our damage is going to be coming from Shatter Strike. We've got a little bit of mana regen right now, so we really don't have to cast Mana Strike that much. We primarily just Shatter Strike. Glacier is our movement ability because it allows us to do this, which is dive in, freeze everything, and then cleave it down with Shatter Strike. And so while we're running around in here against all these little guys, we don't really need to do anything but hit our Shatter Strike to kill them. Versus bosses, you'll spam Mana Strike and Shatter Strike at the same time so that you get all of your mana dumped with Shatter Strike, and then all of your mana regen comes from Mana Striking the target. You don't click the buttons, you just hold both of them down at the same time, and when you have mana, it Shatter Strikes. When you don't have mana, it Mana Strikes. So it works out pretty good. As you can see, this Empowered Monolith is pretty smooth. I mean, we do 3, 4, 5K crits with Shatter Strike on the high end. And then we have a ton more mana versus bosses, or a ton more damage versus bosses because we're running the Bloody Nib right here. Let's not die. I need poison resist. Very low on the poison resist. But I mean, it just cleaves through everything. No issues whatsoever. Shatter Strike is casting 3 times every time you press the button. So you really only hit it once to clear each little pack here. Sometimes things will get tankier, they may take a second one. We're getting ward on hit from Shatter Strike and our Mana Strikes as well. And then we have some ward regen from Low Life Ward on our boots and our gloves. Late game, probably worth it to go at Sanguinus, but I haven't really decided on that yet. It may be better not to go at Sanguinus and just use a little bit of Low Life. Big guys will Mana Strike them down. Go. Echo completed. Goofy gear. All right, so we're going to quick look at kind of where we are in progression right now, and then we're going to build the character on a build planner so that you can see how the character builds out. Right now we are 25 into mage passives. We pick up the int and the resist, the attack speed, and the increased crit multiplier. On a rune master, we just pick up the less damage taken and the rune word cataclysm for more crit. And then over here, we build out our most of our points into the Spellblade tree itself. Cold damage for melee attacks, melee cold damage and freeze rate multiplier, ward gained when you hit with an elemental melee attack. We're taking this for percent chance to chill. We just need 1 point in here. And then we go 5 and 5 for more defenses with Arcane Shield. Over here, we go to Essence of the Duel, which gives us 15% increased attack speed and ward gained on elemental melee attack again. We dual wield. We take our dual wield node, we put 3 points in here so that we can get 10 points in here, which is 150% increased damage on our Shatter Strike. And then we're filling out our int and ward per second here, and then we'll go into Prodigy here. And so that's kind of the goal for the build right now. For skills, we're in Mana Strike, and all we care about is mana. So we get mana gain here, attack speed, increased mana gain here, mana gain without a mana gain on crit, and then a 40% base crit to make sure that all of our Mana Strikes are always crits, because again, Mana Strike is just for mana. Shatter Strike is for damage. The most important node in here is this one. It is 240% increased crit multiplier because we dual wield swords. We take our mana efficiency node so that we get more Shatter Strikes out with less mana regen needed and less mana strikes needed for them. And we come down here and build 2 points in here, 1 point in here, so that we can get down to 2 recasts. This lowers the attack speed and increases the mana cost, but you get 3 casts for every 1 Shatter Strike. Very, very powerful multiplier. And then we come over here and get points into attack speed. Now, once we have a +4 Shatter Strike chest piece, we will probably get some more points spread out in here. Maybe 2 more points here for additional cold pin and a larger area. Maybe 1 more point down here for more attack speed with Shatter Strike. And maybe 1 more point in here for, again, more damage and an increased area. This global increased cold damage is also nice. Global freeze rate multiplier is nice. We do freeze a lot. So a +4 Shatter Strike would give us some points to move around. Right now we have 21 in Shatter Strike because of our Diophin's Bloody Nib, which is one of the biggest increases to our damage versus bosses for this build. Now, we use Glacier as our movement skill. Hello, Ocean. We use Glacier for our movement skill. Glacier is our way to get Rime, which gives us global damage over time. Doesn't matter, but global freeze rate multiplier for more freezes. We buff the Rime effect here, and then we give the Rime a longer duration here. This just allows us to do more freezing, and then we dive in with Glacier via the traversal skill conversion right over here. And we pick up 600% freeze rate multiplier for Glacier, so that again, more freezes. So it's safer when we dive into a group of enemies. We take Enchant Weapon over here, build out melee chill chance to added melee cold damage and increased melee cold damage here. Over here, we take 50% increased attack speed. Down here, we'll take increased melee elemental damage and melee elemental damage for 2% missing mana. Now, for bosses, you're first going to want to dump all of your mana with Shatter Strike, then use Enchant Weapon so that we maximize our benefit of melee elemental damage for 2% missing mana right here. On Flame Ward, pretty straightforward. We come over here and take increased fire damage. We convert that to increased cold damage, and we give our retaliation a freeze rate. Then we come over here and take Ward Granted and come down here to less hit damage and then less elemental damage taken. This allows Flame Ward to be our primary defensive ability and offensive ability at the same time. We're just going to hit this every time it's up, basically. Cooldown recovery will be very good for this build because we want to maximize our uptime on Flame Ward and on Enchant Weapon. As far as gear goes, 2 crystal swords with flat melee crit and crit strike multiplier. And then you want good rolls on the implicits. So that is the most important thing. The Ignite on here and the slow on here, we don't care about. It's nice to have. And there are other affixes that we can put on the suffixes here that we'll go over later. But this sword right here is a blue sword with 5% melee crit and 42% crit strike multiplier. That's exactly what you want until you can get the tier 6 or tier 7 versions of those. Peak of the Mountain is also a requirement for the build. Peak of the Mountain is going to increase our critical strike. Oh, I'm making a video right now, so yeah, we're using a blue one because we don't have an exalted one, and we don't really need. We haven't gotten a yellow one that has the crit and the crit strike multiplier yet, so this one's perfectly fine. Like I said, Peak of the Mountain is going to be one of the key pieces of the build. This is the crit strike multiplier that you need to get your critical strike chance up. Mage does not have a lot of crit strike multiplier free in its tree, and so we need this big crit strike chance from Peak of the Mountain. We're using a bone amulet right now so that we have more physical and more necrotic resistance. A bone amulet's probably going to be ideal, but we'll build this out in last Epoch tools and see what that looks like. We're going to be using opal rings as our primary ring. This just happens to be a jade ring that we have on right now, but you wouldn't be using that normally. Probably going to be using a spider silk sash until we get our resistances up across the board. And then we can switch this over to a different belt. And then we're using 8% of current health loss per second and 8% of missing health gained as ward per second. This is important because we're also using last steps of the living, which is 13% of current health loss per second and missing health gained is ward per second. Obviously on this one, we want a better roll. 13 is in the middle of it. But these are easy to farm, easy to come by, and easy to buy on the marketplace. Last steps of the living are going to be another one of your key components to build, along with gloves that have the experimental affix. Now, Diothan's Bloody Nib is something that you don't have to use for anything except bosses. But versus bosses, 2% cold pin with Shatter Strike per stack of bleed on you is really good. We run 30 to 40 stacks of bleed versus bosses, and so that is 60 to 80% more damage with Shatter Strike. Very, very powerful. But if the bleeds are causing you to take too much damage, or your build's not tanky enough yet, you can swap this out for a relic that gives you some more defenses here. As far as idols go, we're using this more melee damage and increased armor, and more melee damage and increased armor right now. They're not ideal for us right now, but they're good enough. And then we're kind of using all the smaller idols to fill in our resists as we're leveling and farming our gear and getting it put together. And so you can see we're sitting at kind of middle of the road on our resists. We need to work on those a little bit. We need some more health. We need a little bit more mana regeneration, would probably be nice, but all in all, we're good. We need a lot of intelligence, and we need frostbite shackles here instead of our experimental affix, so that we have that ward retention and the freeze rate multiplier. Our armor is just a defensive piece right now. It's got crit strike multiplier and freeze rate multiplier on the base armor, and I really think this is probably one of the best bases for the build. And then obviously you want increased health and health on your armor. The damage dealt to mana before health probably doesn't matter that much, or the 66 mana, but that's what we've got. And so let's go and take a look at this in Last Epoch Tools. What we're going to do in Last Epoch Tools is kind of build where we want to go, like the items that we want and the layout that we want long term, as opposed to while we're leveling. LastEpochTools.com is sucking right now. There we go. All right. So with build planner, on Last Epoch Tools. Maybe using max rolls because Last Epoch Tools is slow. There we go. So we use max rolls. For our skills first, let's see. We are a mage and we are a Spellblade. For our passives, this will probably be our leveling process. But first, we're going to take all of our int here. Go ahead and 2 in there so that we can get all of our attack speed, so that we can get all of our crit chance and crit chance multiplier. Then we're going to want to go over to Rune Master and get health again and less damage taken from enemies and get our rune word. We're going to come over to Spellblade and we're going to want to get our ward gained on elemental attack. Probably going to want to max this one out. Definitely going to want to max out our melee cold damage and our freeze rate multiplier. We're absolutely going to want our attack speed here. We're going to want a dual wield here. 3 points in here so that we can put 10 points in here. I don't think that this freezing aura is a good choice for building across it over here. I tried that, and you just don't get enough freezing auras to make a difference. We do obviously want arcane shielding. It's going to be our primary defensive layer. And then we want to build out our int here. And we want to build out our ward for 10 intelligence because we're going to want probably about 100 intelligence in our final build here. I've got 9 unspent points. Where are we going to want to put those? Want one chance in there just to make sure that we're getting chill on our cold attacks. I thought about this elemental burst as a possibility, and I need to play with that some more. But we'll just leave this at 8 unspent points right now, and you can kind of fill out things that you need as you're gone. Once you get to level 92, you'll have a real good idea of kind of what's going on and what you want to do with your character. Now, skills, obviously, we are taking Mana Strike, we are taking Shatter Strike, we are taking Glacier, and then Enchant Weapon and Flame Ward. We went over our skills before, but we'll kind of go through it again. You want as much mana as you can get your hands on. So we're just going to fill out all of the mana nodes here. Make sure that we have crit, and then a little bit more mana right in here. For Shatter Strike, we want to rush down here to the recast node, and then we want to pick up our mana efficiency. And then we can come over here and pick up our attack speed. Well, I think we're actually going to put 3 in here on this because we don't have the Bloody Needle equipped yet, so we can't do 4 out of there. Come over here and max out right here. Now, there we, that all looks correct. We're going to come over to Glacier. And Glacier is something that you can play around with and build it however you want it. We're using it for the traversal. That's the most important part. We want the freeze right here. I really like this rhyme buff so that we just have more freezing going on. Rhyme duration right here. And then I just threw my last one in here for greater ice vortex so that we just have more freezing. Enchant weapon. We're going to rush straight for our added melee cold damage. We're going to get our attack speed here. And then we're going to come down here and get our desperation. And our mana efficiency. On Flame Ward again, the most important thing to get is going to be coming over here first so that it's cold based, getting our increased cold damage, and then filling out our defensive layers over here. Will give us a nice set of defenses over here. And then we've got 1 point left over in Flame Ward. Stick it on that ward that you get from Flame Ward right there. So this will be a good build out for your skills. Now for our gear, this is idealized gear. I'm going to start off with a crystal sword. And then we want it to have crit chance. We've got to pick melee critical strike chance. We don't want increased critical strike chance. And then we need crit strike multiplier. And so both of our swords are going to have melee crit strike chance and melee crit strike multiplier. For suffixes, we have some options here. Frailty on hit is nice. Red armor on hit is nice. And so we can go ahead and use that sword. We're going to do same thing over here, but maybe instead of frailty, you could pick up blind on hit, or you could pick up slow on hit. Hold penetration would be nice. You have a lot of options on things that you can pick for your suffixes on your sword. We obviously don't want health on hit because we are playing this more as a low life. You could go with increased stun chance with melee attacks. You could go with, yeah, I think those are all of our big options here. But we'll just leave this as is for right now. Those are two good sword bases to start with. Frailty is a great defense. Shed armor is a great offense. Up here, we want a peak of the mountain. And we just want the highest roll that we can get right here. That's going to be important. Uh, Over here, we're going to want a bone amulet. And then on our amulet, we've got some flexibility. I like having mana regen here. I think mana regen is really good and makes our build feel better with clearing. Hold penetration will be great here. Hold damage would be great here. Critical strike chance would be great here. Multiplier would be great here. And you can use this to fill out your character. I'm going to go ahead and put crit multiplier on it for right now. For suffixes, this is how we're going to fill out our resistances and our health, things like that. We're going to want health on the amulet if at all possible. And then we're going to want to get our resistances started. And I will go ahead and throw in a fizz resistance here. So that this one amulet solves our physical resistance in entirety. And we get good necrotic resistance there. Now, we're going to want to overcap our resistances in this guide just because you're not always going to have the best rolls. And so in a real world situation, you're going to have less than 93% because this is a max roll fizz resistance and fizz resistance affix. Now for armor, I really, really like the crit multiplier armor. You could run the critical strike chance armor if you wanted more defenses, um, but this one is really nice. I think for in-game though, we're going to want to go with this one for the critical strike avoidance and the 324 armor. Suffixes, we want health and health. Oh no. Oh, you dirty max roll. Okay, no, we're good. All right. For our armor, like I said, we want health and we want health. This is going to be very, very important to us. For prefixes, we want to shatter strike. And we want P7 shatter strike. This is going to be a very, very powerful addition to our character. Um, for our other prefix, we've got flexibility, but ideally we'll get int on this, especially since you can get very high rolls on int on your chest. And so I think this is a great chest for us to have right now. This also allows us to go back into Shatter Strike. Let's go ahead and add in our nib here first. Let me go back to our skills and go to Shatter Strike. And this is where we have 5 more points to spend. I think we go 1, 2, 3 for more cold pen in area, and then 1, 2 for more damage in area. This will make clearing feel much better. Your boss DPS is already solid. This will increase your boss DPS, but I think that'll make clearing feel much, much better. Now, on our belt, there's a lot of different options here. I think a spider silk sash is great, but we could go with like a Praetorian belt for more armor. I think a spider silk sash is going to be good for filling out our defenses. And again, we're looking for defenses here. So let's get our elemental resistance up. And let's get our void resistance up. We'll also get void resistance on our gloves, probably. And the prefixes on our belt, I think mana regen is really good. And we can do cold damage on the belt, or we can do freeze rate and freezing concoction on potion units. Um, what other options do we have here? Potion converted to ward isn't bad. I think ideally we'll have freeze rate multiplier on our belt. I think that's really strong. And then we're going to want a sealed experimental affix, and we can go with probably mana on potion use or ward gate on potion use for 10 imp with ward decay threshold. I think the ward decay threshold is going to be really nice for us, especially if we can get this at like a tier 5. That'd be very good. And then this makes our potions better, and we have more ward. The ward decay threshold moves your base ward threshold up higher so that all of your ward retention works above it. And it helps to maximize the amount of ward that you're going to get from your ward per second items just to have the ward decay threshold. Now resistances are starting to look much better. For boots, we're going to want to use Last Steps of the Living. These are great boots. And for gloves, we're going to use these to help solve our resistance issues. And one of the ways we do that is by picking gloves that have resistance on them. These void resistance gloves are great to have. And then you can come in here and fill out more elemental resistance to get more ele res. Uh, and then we can come in here and start hybrid health on the gloves. This will get our health up and get our resistances solved. For stats, I want int, and I have melee attack speed on my current gloves, but I think critical strike chance would be really, really good. And again, on gloves, we're going to go ahead and get an experimental affix, and we want the ward for missing health experimental affix. I'll say we get a tier 5 of that on there as well. Now, these are really good gloves. The other gloves that you can use that I'm farming right now are the frostbite shackles. And this is chance to apply frostbite on hit, which will increase our damage, increase frostbite duration, freeze multiplier, and 1% ward retention for 1% uncapped hold resist. If we get these, we're going to want to get legendary potential on them and get cold resistance slammed on them, and ideally experimental. These gloves might be a little bit harder to make, but this would be idealized gloves. Until you have legendary potential frostbite shackles and you're slamming them with cold resist or with current health loss per second, health gain as ward, you're probably going to use your other gloves. But these would be really, really great gloves for long term. Now for rings, we're going to want to use opal rings. We want int, and we want Res, and then we're going to fill out our other resistance here, and we'll go with poison. And then again, you have a lot of options here as to what you can get. Cold damage is good. Critical strike chance is good. Dex you could throw on here. There's a lot of options we could throw on here, but again, we want to make sure that we're getting our crit strike chance up right now. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then this other ring is going to be very similar. An opal ring. We want LA resistance. And then we want necrotic resistance. And then int over here. crit strike chance over here, and then we've got a ring. Now, if we're using these gloves, we're golden on resist. If we switch over to the frostbite shackles, we're going to have some holes, maybe in fire and lightning, maybe on void, and we can use idols to fill those resistances out, just to make sure that everything is solid. Right now, we'll go ahead and just build it assuming this, because those frostbite shackles are goal items anyway. Now we want the 4x1 items. I think these are going to be our best choice. Those are good. Very, very good. And then we're going to want the Ligonian idols for armor and health. And just stick these little guys all over the place. And you can use these idols any way you want to, just to kind of fill out your character. And there's a lot. You don't have to use these. This is just a nice setup for getting some more armor, getting some more health, which will help us with our ward. I'm gonna stick one of these guys up here. You also have the option on that side one, on these side nodes, that you can move this over and take this away and use, those are 1x2s. And these guys can have double health. I don't want to type. That's okay. I'll just pick it in the list. And then put this one over here as well. So idols are going to be used to fill in holes in our build and to give us more defenses or to give us more offensive. We could probably use an ambition in here instead, since we're doing cold damage. If you're struggling on bosses, that'll also increase your armor. Like we can replace this one. Throne of Ambition. It does not want to put Throne of Ambition in here. Throne of Ambition, there you go. And then we could stick more of these little guys over here. A lot of different options. There is also the adorned idol, and you could put 3 adorned idols in different slots around here, if you're using the Throne of Ambition. And you can get adorned idols to either increase your damage or increase your defenses. Again, the idols are very flexible. Now, on our blessings, these are all of our drop rate stuff, which we don't care about. Crit strike multiplier, going to be what we're going to go for here. Uh, on this one, I'm torn. I like the ward gained on potion and the ward decay threshold. You could also go with the increased stun chance, for example, the chance to gain ward when you hit. Give a little bit of flexibility here. If you don't have enough lightning resist, you can come in here and take lightning resist. I think in the end of the game, we're going to want to go with ward decay threshold. I think it's a really solid choice. On Reign of the Dragons. Again, necrotic resistance if you need to fill in the holes. You don't want melee damage leech. I think this one is your best choice. You could also go with crit strike avoidance if you need crit strike avoidance, because we can use this one plus this armor, which could get us the cap on crit strike avoidance. On Last Ruin, or there you go. Yeah. Let's start shred cold resistance. This is going to be our best choice here. Over here, get a chance to apply frailty if you don't have it on one of your swords, or you can go with the armor here, which would be the ideal choice. So your defenses here. Now this will get us up to almost 2k health with everything, which means our ward is going to be sitting around 3,500 to 4k while we're running around and doing things. This will give us a great layer of defense. We don't really need much armor, but a little bit of armor does help. And so this puts us at 37% mitigation from hits. This caps all of our stats over here. We have good int over here. And so everything looks solid. Now, down here is where you put your skills, Mana Strike and Shatter Strike. Again, your movement skill is going to be Glacier. We're going to use Flame Ward, and we're going to use Enchant Weapon. And so again, the play style is, while you're running around, we're just going to Shatter Strike and let our mana regen keep us moving, doing damage. And then versus bosses, we're going to dump all of our Shatter Strike mana into the boss. And then we're going to hit those, and we're going to Mana Strike and Shatter Strike at the same time. And if you just hold down both buttons, just like that, it'll just keep hitting. Very, very straightforward build, very fun, very easy to use. If you have any questions, come hit me up on Twitch chat or ask questions at the bottom of this video, and I'm happy to help you any way that I can. Thank you very much for watching. Y'all have a wonderful day.